sure to leave a like and subscribe if you are new. So this is another scary story video. I'm thinking how the format I'm going to do it is like I have a scary story video, then 2 other videos, and scary story video, and so on. So every third video you are going to get a scary story up until Halloween. So let's begin. As always, these are coming from Reddit r/True Scary Stories. And this first story is called The Haunted Cabin Behind My House. This is a relatively old story that my dad has told me a few times over the years, but with Halloween coming up, it's been on my mind again. I myself have never been able to witness the house, though the description I've been given by multiple men 20-something years after seeing it gave me a very vivid mental image. To begin, I would like to mention that my father is a highly religious man, a preacher's son, and does not believe in ghosts or anything paranormal in the slightest. Nothing seems to spook him either, but he still swears up and down that he felt something unnatural that scared the living shit out of him just from mentioning the story to me on the rare occasion that he would bring it up. Back in the late 80s, he and a few friends would regularly hike over the waterfall/creek bed behind our farm and would follow the trails up until they eventually met the frontage road off of the interstate. Well, one night they decided to take a different route, to go around the backside of another farmer's land, mostly to see the animals because they own emus and other large pets that weren't common in the local area. Supposedly, after leaving the area and continuing into the woods at night, they managed to stumble upon what is described by all 5 men 20 years later as a Blair Witch look-alike house. It was a very, very old home, and my dad claims that just looking at it gave him its ominous feeling. But of course they had to go inside and check it out. Inside the house was a vintage cottage-style home that was probably built in the late 40s or early 50s. The group was instantly met with writing and symbols in strange Latin-like languages, with a few English graffiti pieces that quoted a supposed satanic or pagan worshipping ritual, with several pieces describing how to sacrifice a human soul to some. My father still claims to this day that certain symbols were painted on the walls in blood, while others were clearly spray paint, and I find it easier to believe because he also worked as a firefighter for years before this happened, and had a lot of experience with seeing human blood and dismembered bodies on the freeway after car accidents. Past a small living/kitchen area was a stairwell that was so small that their shoulders would physically brush either side of the wall as they went up and down the stairs. The stairs went straight up, stopped at a small landing, then turned right. As you started up, you could not see what might be standing at the top. At the top of the stairs, a door led to a large attic-styled bedroom where actual chain manacles and locks hung from one of the walls near a circular window at the end of the room, which was also completely covered in weird symbols, graffiti, and now more obvious and frightening large dried puddles of blood that had seeped into the floors and walls. Allegedly, once they were upstairs investigating the room, they swear that they heard someone moving up the stairwell behind them quickly, but there was no one there. Everyone essentially told me that it sounded almost like heels clacking on wood, and now completely spooked, they rushed back down the stairs to see if someone was playing a prank on them and was hiding downstairs. Surprise, surprise, they found nothing and no new footprints in the dust and grime that differed from the ones they left on their way in. To keep things interesting, I met with each of the guys separately to ask them about what they remember, expecting to maybe find a crack or something to prove that maybe they were exaggerating. But when I asked them, I got the same answer from each of them with no hesitation. They got the same details right down to the minute they entered the house and the minute they left. But here's where it gets really strange. They left the myself, but with trespassing laws being far more prevalent in today's times, it would be nearly impossible to get there without getting shot or going to jail, as it was not on our property. I don't know, it always gives me the creeps thinking about it, but I never considered the story to be true until I did this little mock interview with all the guys, and when I say these are grown men are scared to death by this story, I mean it. Seeing them get physically worked up and frightened by just telling the story caused me to be less of a skeptic. This second story is called Something in the Woods. Hey everyone, for a little backstory, my name is Miles and I live in a small town in Georgia. Most of my life I lived in a community but recently moved out to a more rural area. The house that I am in now is around 45 to 50 years old and it sits on a good plot of land. Anyway, let's get to the story. So I moved in a few months ago and nothing was out of the ordinary. I live with my mom, sister, and 3 dogs, so when I would hear something outside or an odd noise, I would chalk it up to just being one of them. About 2 weeks after moving in is when things started happening. One night, I just finished doing all the things I needed to do before going to bed and was relieved to see my comfy bed. I fell asleep like any other night but woke up around 2 in the morning to odd noises, like something calling out for something. I grabbed my phone, then walked over to the window. I live on the 2nd story, to shine my flashlight outside. Nothing, just a yard in the woods. Then I heard it again, this time more clear. Someone was yelling out for help. I got extremely nervous and took a step back from my window. I was about to walk to my mom's room to tell her, but I stopped myself. I waited to hear it again before going to get her. With nothing for around 2 minutes, I went back to bed. When I woke up the next morning, I asked my mom and sister if they heard anything. Both of them said they didn't hear anything and slept like a baby. I brushed it off as my mind playing tricks on me and went to do some schoolwork and yard work. Night comes and I am letting my dogs run around in the backyard and to use the bathroom and have some outdoor time before it was lights out. I was playing Clash of Clans on my phone when I realized I didn't hear my dogs playing or walking around. I looked up and they were staring at something in a little clearing before you hit the woods. I looked in the direction of where their heads were and saw an outline of a deer. The deer was on all 4 legs, but just staring at me. I told my dogs to come in and they didn't move a muscle. I kept yelling and yelling until my mom came outside to ask me what the issue was. I told her to look in the direction of the deer, but there was nothing there. The dogs were still staring at something, so I just pulled them inside and locked the door. When I looked out the window, I saw it again, this time closer. I locked every door in the house and headed up for bed. I woke up at 2 a.m. again to someone yelling, but this time I wasn't the only one who heard it. My mom sent me a text, "Is that you?" To which I replied, "No." I listened very carefully to the yelling. This time it was saying Boone. Boone is the name of my youngest dog. I was shitting bricks and ran to my mom's room to talk about what was going on. When I froze in the door, I heard something walking outside under my window. I didn't move at all. I was basically pissing myself thinking someone was about to break in. It probably was a good time to mention my sister was at a friend's house for the night, so it was just me and my mom and the dogs. Whatever was outside walking around didn't sound human. It sounded like a deer or a dog walking around. My dogs sleep in my mom's room, so I thought it was that weird deer I saw earlier. Then the most terrifying thing I could think of took place. Boone! The sound of this thing was nothing like anything I've ever heard before. I ran to my mom's room and she was already on the phone with the police. Stupidly, I walked to my mom's window, opened it, and said, "Fuck off, asshole." I heard fast and heavy footsteps run from the side of my house to my mom's side. I closed the window and heard the thing scratch at the walls of the first floor. The police sirens filled the air, and this thing bolted into the woods. I looked out the window to see it, and I saw a deer on 2 legs. The police knocked on the door and got our statements. We walked around the house and saw footprints and a scratch on the wooden windows, and even a piece of an antler. When the cops left, me and my mom stayed up until light broke the sky walls, but mice or chipmunks like that scurry and scratch, though, through walls. They make a lot of racket, scampering and clambering through walls and ceilings, sometimes accompanied by squeaking. We were not overrun with mice, but always set traps. I'm just noting that so you know how familiar I was with animals in my walls. However, this was different, very different. It sounded bigger, like too big to be in my walls. My walls are 2x4 frames with plywood panels and painted drywall. I remember when my dad built it, there wasn't any room for anything bigger than a chipmunk inside of them. My room on the second floor was at the corner of the house, and there were no rooms on either side of those walls, so it couldn't be my brother or sister in the bedroom. It was very confusing. It went away, and I went back to sleep, but it came back the next night. There I was, lying in bed again, in the dark. When it came back, I wish I could describe it. It sounded like something moving along the wall, brushing the sides of it as it did. It seemed more along the whole wall, not the top or the lower part or the middle. It was like the entire wall was experiencing this touch or presence. It was soft, and it moved from one wall to the next. My bed was in the corner of the room against two walls. The headboard was against one wall, and the right side was against the other. This meant when the sound passed through the walls, it would brush behind my head, around my bed. I was right beside the wall, less than a foot away from it. I could almost feel this sound or presence through the wall. I told my parents the next morning because it was more disturbing this time than I remembered it. They told me it was probably just mice in the walls and ignored me. I asked my brother and sister if they heard it, but they also said no and dismissed me. I actually gave up telling anyone about it because nobody seemed to be paying attention to me, but the sound kept coming back from time to time. I grew to hate it. It began to creep me out more and more. I would hear something and think it was the sound and be so relieved when it turned out to be something else. I'd pull the covers up to my chin and just lay there waiting for it to stop. It sounded sometimes like it was right behind my head in the wall. It sounded like it was right on the other side of it. The hair on my arms would stand on end, and I would be so still and quiet waiting for it to pass. I could not for the life of me understand what on earth was making this sound, and it made it so much more spooky to me. Then one day, weeks later, my big sister reported hearing sounds above her ceiling. My dad came up to her room, and he heard the sounds too. That night, he climbed into the attic through our access door. I was along for the ride, helping him and watching him. He got up into the attic and was looking around with a flashlight. I just had my head through the hatch when I heard him say, "Uh-oh." I ducked down as he said, "Get my gun." It took me a while to figure out which gun he wanted and where the ammunition was for it, but I brought his rifle. What he discovered gave me such relief for the past few weeks of bad nightly experiences. We had raccoons in our attic. The sounds my sisters were hearing were the babies squeaking. When my dad got up in the attic, he realized a mother raccoon was up there in the dark with him. She was growling and not happy. The .22 I got him was for his protection because she was very likely to attack him to protect her babies. The sounds I had been hearing for weeks was the mother tearing up insulation to make her nest for the babies. She was sliding along the rafters, and the sound was radiating down the 2x4s in the frames in the walls. It made it sound like she was right behind the walls, which really she was in my ceiling. It was very strange how the sound was conducted through the walls. The raccoons were relocated, and I never heard the sound again. Alright guys, that's going to do it for today's video. If you enjoyed, please leave a like and comment what your favorite story was. I appreciate you for watching as always. I look forward to